Hey everybody, and welcome to the shop. My name's Grant and I'm a boat builder in northern Michigan. Today we're going to get started on a riverboat that I designed for my brother this last year. I'm really excited to get started on this. I've drawn up a bunch of theoretical boats and I've never actually taken one to completion. So this is going to be a lot of fun and I thought I might as well take you folks along. I've already lofted the boat, so that probably won't be part of this series. None of my footage from that ended up working. But I will show you the lofting and why I think it's important to do that anytime you get the chance to. Basically, we're just going to go over materials, assess what I have, what I need, and how my thought process works for coming up with that based on what's lofted. Enough gabbing, let's get to it. Let's start by looking at the lofting. This is the transom of the boat. This boat is going to end up being 14 feet long, give or take a ½ inch. That's just because I didn't think about it when I lofted the bow to take a round over on it, and you'll see that when we get up there. But back here, I've done a transom expansion. So the dotted line on the outside is the actual widest point of the transom, and then it's narrower aft. These other lines you see coming up across here, those are the half breadth plan. These ones coming down here and here, those are the profile. You need both of those views in order to create this view. This is the body plan. This is what we're going to use in order to make the frames for this boat. I'm going to try and limit the number of molds that I have to make for this boat. Cost savings and whatnot. This is going to have a limited number of cross members on the frames just because I'm trying to keep the weight down in this. You never know if you're going to have to haul it over a log or something while you're out on a river, so trying to keep the weight down so it's easy for one person to drag this thing all over the place. You come all the way up here to the stem and you can see how complicated some of these views can be. This isn't even as complicated as they get, but I've gone and drawn in my rabbit line and then done stem developments where you can actually see a slice through the stem. So that'd be, if you're looking straight down at it, that was what that portion of the stem would look like. And the reason you would do multiples of those is sometimes the angles will change based on where you're at in the stem. This is a fairly straight, even though it's got a curve, it's a fairly straight stem, so that stays pretty consistent. Now with all of that drawn, I can actually come up with dimensions for materials. You can see there's this piece drawn underneath the stem and the knee. That is going to be the keelson. If you look in the half breadth view, you can see there's a piece coming back here that's cut short. That's actually going to go the full length of the boat. Those are chine logs, so I can figure out what those dimensions are going to be. By having all that information, I can go to the stock or add up what stock I'm going to need, and we can make determinations on what's the best fit. So stepping outside, you can see some of the white oak I have available for this skiff. I thought it would be a good chance to show you what happens when you don't have enough air circulation. This log got stacked up wet. I actually had it milled just to do some steam bent frames, and I've always found it's easier to have a slightly damp log, so I try to get fresh cut lumber. And I thought I had stacked it up enough and had good airflow. Apparently I didn't. That one was near the bottom of the stack and it started to grow mold, and I ended up catching it right as soon as that started showing up and dealt with it. Got some airflow over it and it stopped before it got too bad into the rest of the pile. If you're not careful, that kind of stuff can actually turn into an extreme fungus situation and your stock is just shot. So lots and lots of this stuff in this tree, so I'll have to be pretty selective of where I go. And yeah, probably gonna cut that end off, maybe use the outside section there because it's actually pretty good when you stay away from the sapwood up to about this knot, and I can get some frames out of that. Gonna be kind of piecemeal, but I'm probably going to start getting frames out of all of this stock. I think somewhere I've got a chunk of 8/4 that I can get the stem out of. I have to look, but probably going to start with the frames, and then I can assess what I have to order from my supplier and get the rest of my lumber. Now that I have my stock milled to thickness, I can better assess what's going on with it and determine where I want to get frames out of this. I want to avoid knots, obviously, but I also want to avoid getting out here into sapwood. You'll see there's been some insect stuff going on out here, so I'm going to make sure I'm inside of that and get rid of as much of this material as I can, but still save usable materials out in the field. If you're going to do frames like I'm doing with this boat, you want to have a fairly straight grain, trying to avoid some swirls. I mean, this, not the end of the world, but you can see there's another knot up in here and it really gets swirly. It's going to be a bugger to work, but not life-ending or anything like that. So I'll probably be able to get maybe 2 frames out of this by the time I dodge sapwood, and I'll have to deal with a little bit of this, but again, not the end of the world. Now that I've got this pattern made, I can actually move it all over my stock and decide what's going to be the best fit for it. Usually when you're looking at something like this hunk of white oak, you'll run into knots or something like that, and your grain is most likely going to follow best around something like that if you're not getting grown knees, which I don't have that option. I'm actually kind of liking that, so I think I'll just go and trace this out. You'll notice on this pattern I actually have my waterline marked on it and one station mark on here, and I will transfer those to my finished piece. All right, I think I'm about ready to call it a day, but I wanted to show you some of my mistakes after all of my preaching about paying attention to where knots are at and grain orientation and all of that kind of stuff. When I was laying out this knee, I pointed at this big knot and I ignored this little one, and had I flipped the piece over, I would have seen that there's these two little ones coming out here. This guy is actually farther towards the middle of the piece, which means it's coming through at an angle, and I nicked it. So this knee is not going to go in the boat. That is an ugly eyesore, and I don't like having something like that in one of my boats. Probably shallow enough it wouldn't affect the structural integrity of the boat. I'm not going to chance it. So there you go, my version of the Woodwright shop. I screwed up. I can fix it. Annoying, yes, but you get what you get. A little example of what we're going to be getting into in the next video. We're going to be making some frames very similar to this one. This is 1 inch currently. I'm going to thin it down to 3/4 because I think this is just too beefy for the boat, and we'll go into all those details then. Yeah, enough gabbing. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate the fact that everybody takes the time to watch these. If you have any questions, comments, ideas, I don't care. Just leave a comment. Say hi. Laugh at me. Give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing. We'll see you on the next one.